My guest today is Ben Erste. Ben is a lifelong Ohio native who works as the Regional Planning Director for East Ohio and Northwest Virginia. His background includes law, finance, and event logistics. In his free time, he enjoys reading, playing sports, and spending time with family and friends. He didn't include this in his bio, but I know this about him. He played college rugby while also going to law school. Ben, welcome to Clear Enough. How are you today?
Good. Thanks for having me, Drew. Excited to be here. You and I don't get to talk enough, so this is awesome.
No, we had the great misfortune, I think, of getting to spend about 6 months together in the practice court program, Baylor. So we worked very closely together through that rigorous program for a while. And I was glad to have you by my side then. And I'm grateful you agreed to visit with me again tonight.
That's awesome. And I hope we never have to go back to practice court.
No, dude, if I ever go to court again, something's gone seriously wrong. All right. So quick heads up. We start with a few anchor questions that I send every guest, and then we switch it up to wildcard prompts chosen at random from a list of 60. So let's get into it. I like to start with this, Ben, because we've all carried around some weird ideas that didn't age well. What's something that you used to believe about worker success that you just don't believe anymore?
Yeah, so I thought about this one, and this, for me, it's kind of a simple answer. It might be unique for other people, but the idea that losing has value that's inherent to it. I'm the type of person who I grew up, I liked seeing people like Tiger Woods or Tom Brady or people with high levels of success.
People that just couldn't lose.
100%. And it's always, everyone's like, oh, well, like I got 4th place in something, like, yay, let's, like that. I learned so much. And I'm thinking to myself, I mean, what could you have learned from getting 4th that you couldn't from getting 1st, right?
Sure.
And I always saw it as like a motivation thing. People just found it easier to be motivated when they didn't win, right? Because they're not on top of the mountain. But recently here, I've seen it as something to where when you don't win, it changes your emotional character in a way that it wouldn't otherwise if you did win, right? And so that when it comes to success, when you're not on top, right, you get a grit to you that is unique to losing, right? It's unique to not being first place, to not being on top of the mountain, to not being the best that there is. And that's something that you can't get from winning. No matter how hard you try, no matter how good you are, it's unique and it has value to it. And I'm excited that I've got to experience that. But now that I actually can use that to motivate me.
Yeah, I think it was Hertz that in the 90s, their slogan was, we're the number 2 rental car company in the nation, so work that much harder to please you, or something like that. And that was their whole marketing thing was, we're 2nd place, so we're going to try harder for you. And I just remember thinking along a similar vein to what you were talking about, that it's like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. And not many brands would choose to argue that they're 2nd place. But you're right, there's some utility there for, we're going to learn, we're going to figure it out, the headspace is different when you're trying to keep the success, you're trying to stay on top of the mountain versus when you're just trying to do a great job to get there. It's a different energy.
Absolutely. And to be well-rounded, you got to be able to do both. I think that's important.
Yeah. So another thing that I ask everyone that comes on the show is about imposter syndrome. When was the last time that you felt like a fraud or an imposter? And what did you do about it?
So when I started my current job, I showed up at the office the first day and there was an office and it was pretty much make of this as you will, figure it out. And, oh, by the way, you are the project team leader for millions and millions of dollars of things that are going on. And you don't know how these projects work. You don't know who else is involved with them. And there's no manual. There's no training. Pick up the phone, call some people, figure out what's going on. I replaced one of those people a career lifer at the position. and no one else really knew how she did what she did.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was one of those things to where I took over and I was way out of my depth. I had no idea what was going on. I've got all the education. I've got a relatively diverse work experience. Nothing would prepare you for this. There's nowhere to learn this. And so it was really about just asking people for help, asking questions, and then kind of banging your head against the wall. Just work, work, work. And I found that generally, if you are willing to put in the effort to anything and just work really hard at it, you can be above average at anything, right? You can really figure things out. And just by that work ethic, it instilled a lot of trust in people, and people will be like, oh yeah, Ben and I, we've done this before. And it's like, I've been here 2 months. I don't know who else you did it with. It wasn't me. I know you've been doing your job for 30, 40, 50 years, and you're going to show me hopefully what I'm supposed to be doing, because I don't know what we're talking about.
Sure.
But everybody's really helpful if you just ask. And even when you have difficult cases, you just work through it and you'll get there.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I often try to reframe imposter syndrome, right? That feeling that everyone's about to figure out that we don't know what's going on. That when that feeling comes up, I find that it's useful to reframe it as, okay, this is a growth opportunity. I'm expanding, what I feel capable of. Because if we're not feeling that stretch, that slight bit of insecurity, then are we really expanding our vision, expanding our capabilities, being able to do and learn and try and fail and then do it again, if we're not feeling that feeling every once in a while that says, oh, I'm wildly uncomfortable with this and we're going to figure it out.
And if you're not, if you're always comfortable with things, you start to get complacent. I mean, I think that's human nature. There's not a whole lot you can do to avoid that if you're comfortable and just going through the motions of life or whatever else you're working through.
Yeah, I had an ex-girlfriend's dad who would always say, you can't grow in a comfort zone and you can't be comfortable in a growing zone. And that's kind of become a life mantra for me when I feel that I'm stretching. It's like, okay, I guess we're growing now.
And then when you start stretching in like 3 different areas of life at the same time, that's when it starts to get real entertaining.
Oh, for sure. Moving on. What's the strangest free food you've ever been given?
The strangest what?
The strangest free food that you've ever been given.
Food.
These are just jumping off points. So if you have something that comes to mind that's not necessarily an answer to the question, but you're like, oh, that's a thing that came to my mind, then that's good.
Give me an example. I'll come up with one here.
So when I was in Brazil, there culturally, at least in the area that I was in, you have to eat 2 plates of food, and the second plate of food has to be just as big as the first plate, or the person that prepared it will be offended that you didn't like their food. So anytime that a new missionary would come into town, we'd go to this one family that had lots of money so they could be in on the joke. And they would put together this feast of American style foods in Brazil. And we'd go and just pig out, right? Huge first plate, just piling with food. And we'd eat it and just be stuffed after the first plate. And then the wife would come in and go, you didn't like my food? And then the other missionary would go, hey man, you have to have a second plate and it has to be as big as the first one. And so you're sitting there, you're like, no, but I'm already full. And she's looking and like getting increasingly agitated and she's in on it, right? But just to mess with the new missionaries and to teach them, hey, some of these people will give you all of the food that they have for the entire day. And if you eat all their food, they're not going to eat. So just be aware of how much you eat. You have to have 2 plates and the second plate has to be as big as the first one or they're going to be offended. So, we didn't pay for that food. So that was a strange meal that we were served, was the let's manipulate you into teaching you a lesson.
That makes me think when I studied abroad in Europe, I had a professor who was quite wealthy who would take us around to stay with different other people in a social class I was unfamiliar with. So we'd stay at private castles that people just owned in the middle of Germany or Austria or other Central European locations. And when you were there, you'd wake up, didn't matter what time, there would be an entire Bavarian breakfast. So your cold cuts and like sandwiches for breakfast. And then there would be like mid-afternoon desserts and coffees and teas. And for us, we think of desserts, right? Even at, say, something like Thanksgiving, where maybe you have, I don't know, 10, 12 pies. Well, this would just be a random Wednesday, and there would be a table, like a circular table with a 10-foot diameter, and this thing is just stacked up with desserts on just trays on trays on trays, and you're like, all right, I'll take two, right? I feel like this is a place where I can't be on one dessert. I'll take two. And everyone's like, you want more? Like, you need fourths? You need a few more cookies? And that, it was always so generous and so nice, and everyone was so kind about it. But it was something I'm so unfamiliar with, because normally somebody just has some brownies or a pie, and that's plenty. But it was a very different world that I engaged in.
That's fantastic. Thank you for sharing. So what is a unique ritual or habit that you have before bed?
For bed, I pray every night. That is something I try to do. Putting 10 minutes aside, I think of just quiet, generally, turn the lights off or go sit on the porch or something like that, to where you can block out the distraction or the noise or the visual stimulation, just kind of relax, reset. That's something I like to do. I'm a morning showerer, so I don't really get into that type of stuff, but that's kind of the thing I do to reset and reframe myself.
Yeah, I love that. What's the worst first impression that you've ever made?
Oh boy. I've made a decent amount of poor first impressions. I generally do better on the second and third, right?
Okay.
But the worst first impression. Well, actually, a funny first impression. I don't know about worst, but I've got a pretty funny one. I was at a work conference, went to like a mixer social gathering that an engineering firm was putting on. I'm going about talking to my people. I get talking to this guy. He's like, "Oh, you're from Texas." He's from he heard I was like, "No, I just went to school there." And he's like, "Oh, I'm from Kansas." And we get talking back and forth, whatever. I talked to him for probably 20 minutes. We're talking about wind patterns and all the fun things, that you would talk about with someone random in a mixer. I couldn't remember his first name at the end of it. I was like, "Oh, nice guy."
No.
I turn back to kind of my group. We both go our separate ways. I go back to my people. I'm like, "Hey, what was that guy's name again?" I need to log this in. They're like, "Oh, that's the new CEO of our company." I was like, okay.
Nailed it.
Well played, I guess. That was a funny one. But I think that might have been a good first impression, but it was very strange to have that.
I went to when I had my firm, I went to a charity golf event at a Topgolf, and it was, law firm partners and CPAs and realtors and whatever. And you paid your entrance fee to the event was a charitable donation of X amount of dollars. And every group gets put in a bay, and we had like 20 bays of Topgolf that we were all in. And I get put with the partner of Steven's firm in Waco, and one of the managing partners. And at the end of the night, I'm terrible at golf, just for the record. I'm absolute trash at golf. I was there for the charity part of the charity event, not for the golf part of the charity golf event. And so the next day I get a text from Steven. He goes, "Well, my partner says you're a really good guy, but a terrible golfer." I was like, "Yeah, fair. That is correct. I feel like I'm a decent guy and a terrible golfer."
I'm actually now really curious to see you golf, Drew.
Oh no, Ben, I think the world of you. You'll think less of me after we go to Topgolf. I don't think my ego could take it. I mean, maybe, but What is the most awkward thing that you've said in an interview or a job interview or something like that?
Oh,
That thing that like it comes out of your mouth and you wish you could grab it out of the air and put it back in your mouth.
yeah. I meant to say this, not necessarily in the way I said it. I asked someone, I interviewed for a job and that I was asked to interview for, and I was overqualified for the job. And I asked why they had a whole department for one person's job when I was hiring to be in that department.
Mm-hmm.
So probably not the smartest question or way to frame that. That being said, good question that I think had, because they were trying to, say how much work there was to be done, and it didn't appear like there was going to be.
Mm.
So that
and if there weren't going to be the resources that you need to do it.
Yes, it was going to be one of those things where it was probably going to be a disaster. So
good to sniff those out ahead of time. But I could see how in the moment you're like, oh no, that didn't come out. The question didn't come out the way that I meant for that question to come out.
yes.
What's the oddest compliment you've ever received?
Oh,
I've got one if you need a minute to think.
oh, yeah. I want to hear yours anyway. So let's start with you.
So my wife's incredible. I don't know if you met Tina while we were in school, but my wife's amazing. I think the world of her. My whole family likes her better than me. And to be fair, they should. She's great. But my uncle who raised me, we never super got along great. And at one point while we were dating, my uncle goes, man, if a woman that great likes you, there must be something good about you. And I was like, okay, I know that was meant to be kind, but that felt really mean.
Yeah.
So that's the one that when I think about an odd compliment, I'm like, that was really great because I know how great my wife is, but like, it didn't feel good.
Yeah. Odd. Probably the oddest compliment. The oddest compliment that I've had recently was I was working on something at work, and when I'm telling you I was diabolically behind on doing my part, there are, like everything else, in the office, right on schedule. And then there's just this one task that had been 6 months, maybe 9 months, just kind of hanging out there, like, oh yeah, I got to get to that. Oh yeah, I got to get to that. Oh yeah, I got to get to that. And I'm at this conference talking with a few people who are related to that work, and everyone in the group thanked me for how on top of keeping that project online and focused and moving.
Nailed it.
Yeah. It was like, thank you. Also, they're all serious and genuine about it, which might make it better or worse. I'm not sure.
Better because it means you're doing a better job at that particular project than your predecessor, or worse when they find out that you're not actually on top of it?
Yeah. So we resolved that quite quickly.
Okay. Yeah. Spent an evening getting that one under control.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. What is your most oddly specific fear? What's
Oddly
that thing?
specific.
What's that thing that you're like, I know that that's a really weird thing that's never going to happen, but I am a little bit afraid if that does happen.
First, not specific example, but I would say my biggest fear is definitely disappointment of people that I find important to me. Right?
Yeah.
I really don't like disappointing a few different people in my life that I find important. And that for me that's been kind of a lifelong thing. I want people to feel that I take care of the important things, that I'm doing my part, a good person, doing what I can to help when it's needed, right? Like when the buck stops there, when something really needs to get done, when something, whatever, I want everyone to know that, hey, you can call Ben, and if there's anything I can do to help, I genuinely will.
Hmm.
And people not feeling that way, that's something that I I've always been afraid of that, just naturally. Actual one fear though, my weirdest fear by far is I am afraid of suspended height, but not moving quickly. So I'm good with a big roller coaster because I'm constantly
'Cause you're
moving.
moving.
But if you just like those, like an amusement park, they'll have those like swings that are just up in the air or something, and they'll just raise you up and you sit there. I could not be more terrified. I'm scared on the high dive or standing on the roof. I'll go in a rocket ship and go to space because we're moving, right? But
Yeah.
you want to hold me 20 feet in the air? I'm out.
So what about skydiving, where you are technically falling the whole time? But,
So
I
I
don't
would be
know.
totally fine. I'd be totally fine skydiving, but someone would have to push me out the plane probably. Unless I had an incentive to why I like needed to legitimately. I couldn't like fake needing to. If someone was
Sure.
like gonna die, I would jump out of the plane. But if it was just like, I could not mentally psych
For
myself out to do it.
funsies. See,
No.
I think I would absolutely love skydiving, except that I have 4 little kids and bad knees. So
Yeah.
skydiving's not in my future, but I think I would genuinely love it.
It is something I've thought about it. I've thought about like trying that, and I'd like to, I don't know. I'd like to, like, if going to space ever became an option, like actually outer space, that's something also I would just love to experience. I think that'd be cool.
You're going to take the Virgin Atlantic plane where you just touch the atmosphere and then come back down, say you were in
See,
space.
that doesn't count to me, right? Like, I don't know.
I don't think it counts either, but Gail and Katy Perry did it. So
That's right. That's right.
Gail and Katy. So what's the funniest wrong number, misdial, butt dial, wrong number text? What's the funniest thing like that you've ever had happen?
I had to turn Hey Google because
Okay.
I was at a sports bar watching a football game. We went to a local place to watch a football game, and I accidentally called a public dignitary of some importance, and my phone's just sitting there in front of me, watching. I look down and it's just like someone had picked up, and I'm like, how quickly can I hit the end button?
You're on the phone with the mayor?
Yeah, not a great moment, but
Oh, that's fantastic.
they took it very well. They picked up, which I guess is a good sign, because
That's wild. That you didn't just leave a 10-minute voicemail on their answering machine.
I know that would have been fun.
Now, was this a person that you knew personally?
Yes.
Or was this
yeah.
a truly random? Okay, so
Mm-mm.
I don't know if that's better or worse, to be honest. From your perspective, better or worse that you knew this person?
I think I almost gave him a heart attack because I was calling them on a Sunday, and I never call anyone outside of, unless it's like lawyers or accountants. I don't call anyone unless it's between 8 and 5. Cause I just don't. Yeah. On a Sunday at like, I don't know, 4 p.m. or whatever it was, 6 p.m. That's either really bad news or really bad news,
Well, as in-house counsel for my company, if you're calling me after 5 p.m., I'm not answering, Ben. So I appreciate to know that you'd answer my call, even though I wouldn't answer yours.
That's right. That's right. That being said, the people that I only call between 8 and 5, I also don't answer unless it's between 8 and 5.
Sure. I understand that too. What's the earliest memory that you have that you're not sure whether or not it's real?
Oh, okay. This is an interesting one, and I know scientifically it's probably not supposed to be allowed. We had a big snowstorm up here when I was about 1.5 years old, and I stood on top of, like, we had a bunch of salt bags. You've been in snow regions before, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we had a bunch of like salt bags stacked up, and I was a little kid and I stood on top of them, and there's a picture of it, but I also remember details that are not picture oriented, right? That wouldn't be there for that. So maybe I've seen another picture, maybe I'm combining different memories. I'm not sure, but I also but the first real memory that I can verify is my parents were watching the start of Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, and Darth Vader walking in right at the start would be my first memory from when I was 1. And I was terrified of him for about 10 to 15 years.
16-year-old Ben driving your first car, terrified of Darth Vader.
That we were relatively close to that.
That's fantastic. Oh my gosh. Who was your most memorable substitute teacher and why?
Well, I was homeschooled through high school, so
when your Aunt Sally came to visit.
I guess my favorite substitute teacher would have to be Professor Counselor when he took over Practice Court 2 and didn't call on anybody for a solid month straight.
That was pretty great. We had 2 weeks with nobody getting called on.
And I was due up too. I'd only been called on once in that class. I was like very next.
I was one of the very few people in our class that got a memo. And it's because I asked if we could shut the blinds during a test. And I got assigned to write an additional homework memo because I asked if we could shut the blinds so we could see the screen. Good times. My counselor story, I was going to share this earlier when we were talking about worst first impressions. You were there for my counselor story of my worst first impression.
Was
so it was
civil procedure.
Civil procedure. Counselor was a professor. And every quarter, he would find a student that he would make read and talk a bunch, but wouldn't really ask like substantive questions to. And so I got called on every single day for our first probably 6 weeks of law school. And getting called on in law school, for those that are uninitiated, it bites. It's no fun getting called on in law school. It's horrible. So I get called on every single day for weeks in that class. And he calls me Bushmaster every single time for about 3 weeks. Okay. My name's Drew Bushman, but he called and he wouldn't even look at his roll, right? He just knew he was calling on me. So he'd go, "Hey, Bushmaster, read this for me." And I would read it. And it was like 3.5 weeks in where he calls Bushmaster and then he looks down at his roll and he goes, "How long were you going to let me call you Bushmaster?" I was like, "Honestly, as long as you needed, sir."
You sat on like in the frontish left, right?
I was like third row on the right, tucked in about 3 people in that particular class.
Because I didn't know you yet first quarter. I mean, we met at some point in first quarter, but we weren't sitting next to each other that semester. I don't think our quarter. We didn't until fall when we had contracts. I sat right behind you in contracts, I think.
Contracts, property, and, or I guess property too. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, that makes Ryan. Sense. I miss Ryan. He was great.
He was my de facto law school advisor, and I appreciate him very much for that. And he was a good Twitter follow.
Oh, there you go. He changed one of his examples in class because I like Taco Bell. So
there was what? Wait. Was there 6 Taco Bells in Waco?
Something like that. I promise you I've been to all of them more than once. But there was an example in class that used to be like Chick-fil-A or something. And he permanently changed it to Taco Bell because he knew that I loved Taco Bell. And I don't remember why, but there was somebody that was like, they were taking contracts their first quarter during our last quarter. And they were like, "Hey, he still uses Taco Bell because of you." And I was like, "Okay, I will take it." I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but I will take that Rory Ryan changed his examples forever so that we could talk about Taco Bell.
That was, you were a big Taco Bell guy.
I still am. The problem is I've gained too much weight and I have high blood pressure and my doctor says I'm not allowed to eat fast food anymore. So I still eat Taco Bell, but I don't eat any other fast food because, I love Taco Bell.
I had one of my best friends he was vegetarian, vegan, something of the sort for a while.
You get a 7-layer burrito at Taco Bell.
Except for the fact that Chinese food didn't count. Orange chicken didn't count because it's probably not chicken anyway.
I dated a girl who was vegan except fish. So I guess she was pescatarian or something.
Okay.
And I asked her, I was like, why fish? Why is fish okay? And she said she didn't know. She had to ask her mom. So she went and asked her mom, and she texted me later, and she told me that fish don't have feelings, and that's why she could eat fish. And I was like, oh, I need to break up. She was wonderful. She was so sweet. But that was one of those things that I was like, I don't think I can deal with that. I'm
Who
too
would have
analytical.
thought that was the nail in the coffin?
I'm too analytical for that, Ben. I can't. That I could. I'm sure someone else happy to deal with that. I could. So yeah, that was the straw that broke the camel's back. Was, I don't know. Let me ask my mom. And then fish don't have feelings. All right. Before we wrap up, I always like to bring it back to the theme of the show. So what's one thing, big or small, that makes your life clear enough for you right now?
It's got to be my faith. To me, that's what it all comes back to. Without that, I'm not sure where I would be, but the one thing I can guarantee is that I wouldn't have any semblance of a good person, I don't think. I'm very unemotional when it comes to my decision-making process, and without that concrete reason for having ethics or moral code, I don't think I would. And I don't rationally, logically, however you want to say it, I don't often extrapolate selfish things as bad outside of a moralistic.
Unless you hurt somebody else, it's okay.
It's one of those things to where if I didn't have the principles that I have, would doing something bad, if it benefited me, like, why wouldn't I do it, right? If I could get away with something that would help me, why wouldn't I do it? And I think, why a lot of people live that way. Because they don't have anything to fall back on. They don't have...
And it's easier.
Structure. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's way easier. It's way easier to live for yourself. I think, personally within society, I think it comes across greed is the big one, right? Everyone's always, or at least the one that I see most often, is everyone's always trying to make the extra buck. Everyone's always... People who have... I've always found it, like, strange to me, people who have plenty of money, and they're, like, worried about paying each other back for coffee or small things. And to me, it's like, are we not, like, we're cool like that, right? We just, we take care of each other. Yeah. We care about each other. We want what's best for the other person. Just, I mean, with all my friends, right? It's like, I'm not going to lose sleep over $5. If I only have $10, I'm not going to lose sleep over you having $5 of those dollars. Like, it's just not, there's not time in the day or energy for that in my life. And it all comes back to what I believe and how to live properly.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. My wife and I are kind of at that age where, a lot of people who grow up in a faith-based community, they get to 18 or 20 and they walk away, or they get to, 35 to 40 and they walk away. Well, my wife and I are right in that 35 to 40 range. And so we're starting to ask some of those questions of, like, okay, if it's true, is it worth it? And, cause for me, I've never struggled with my faith. I never have. I've always believed it's true. I am at the point in my life where I'm asking, okay, if it's true, is it worth it? Like, and that's a really hard struggle for me. But what I keep coming back to is, okay, I leave the church. What do I do differently with my life? I'm not going to start drinking. I'm not going to start smoking. I'm not going to start doing drugs. I'm not even going to start swearing. The only thing that changes in my life if I leave the church is I don't go to church on Sunday. And other than that, I'm still going to have a relationship with, God. I'm still going to, I don't see that part changing. So the only thing that would be changing was I'd not be going and sitting my butt in the room for a couple hours once a week. And that seems like a pretty dumb reason to stop something that I know is meaningful for me. Now, is it meaningful for everyone? No. And that's part of what Clear Enough is, right? Is, I'm not trying to sit here and subscribe for everyone else how they should be living, but to find what that brings them peace, what brings them meaning, and say, find that and then live that. And I'd be a hypocrite if I said I'm not struggling with my faith, because it is something that is meaningful for me. And I'm trying to figure out what that looks like in real life moving forward.
I think there's a really good quote, and I can't quote it, but I'll try and paraphrase it, from C.S. Lewis along the lines of when it comes to your faith, the ultimate prize that we subscribe in is very high for living to your faith. And the temporary price is relatively low, but the one thing that we know with the faith is there's no room in the middle, right?
Mm.
Like, either have the faith or don't have it. But if you kind of have it, you're wasting time because you don't have it, but you're still putting time towards it. And I think that goes for everything in life, but people don't really apply it as much in the faith realm.
Don't go half A towards your job. Do your job while you're at work, and then leave and do family and do hobbies and but straddling the line in any aspect of your life. If you're sitting there not doing it in the way that feels meaningful for you, then why are you doing any of it? And I think that's all, part of what makes clear enough for me. That's part of why I talk about this, is how to find that space, and it's different for everyone.
Absolutely. But we all have that in common, to where we can do our best in every scenario, and it'll always be better.
Yeah. So this is the part where I hand you the mic. Is there anything that you want to plug, promote, or just point people towards?
Anything I want to plug? No, I don't have anything in that sense, to where I'm not trying to sell anything. I'm not writing any books. I'm not.
But when you
have thought about
come back on the podcast,
I would be more than happy to. I was wildly excited when I got an invitation from Drew to do something, because once I moved from Texas, the amount of contact I had with people from Texas pretty much disappeared.
Same. When we moved away a couple years ago, same.
Yeah. And to me, I think the one thing I would say is, I think people should really think about and consider what it genuinely looks like to be a good person in their life, and strive to be that. Because if people just thought, hey, how can I be the best version of myself today, the world would be infinitely better. If 5 more people did that, it would be infinitely better. If 10 more people, if 1 billion more people. But you can't get to 5 without 1. You can't get to 2 without 1. So I just encourage people to do that and try and make themselves incrementally better until they are a better version of themselves, and then keep going. Because when it comes to that battle, you never win.
Yeah. Well, that's a wrap for today's conversation. Huge thanks to Ben for being so open and honest, and for making us all feel a little less alone in this crazy thing called work and life. And hey, if you enjoyed this episode, the best way to support the show is to share it with a friend who might need it today. Until next time, keep things clear enough.